Yeah. Don't nobody else make me feel like. Don't nobody else make me feel like. Don't nobody else make me feel like. So don't nobody else make me feel like. Yeah. Don't nobody else.
Hi, Ashley, and welcome to the show. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive into our conversation.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this chat for the upcoming weeks that we talked about it. And obviously, I know you a little bit from the past, and I've seen your journey unfold. And I've kept an eye on what you've been up to over the last few years. So it's interesting to actually get you on the show and see your story. This show is about people getting back to themselves and their journey of self-discovery. So that's why you come to my mind and why I wanted to invite you on. I think for a start, I think it's important to mention that you are the founder of the Retreat app, and we'll get into that more as we move forwards. I think that's available on Google Play.
Yeah, we're in Apple App Stores and Google Play Stores.
I think it's important to mention that because obviously I know you've put a fair bit of work into that, and your development has contributed to that. And it's, from what I've seen of it, and I'll be honest, I've looked at it briefly, but it looks like a great tool to help people. There's a lot of resources in one place. I suppose where I want to start, Ashley, because I've been watching you recently, is I see that you're in Scotland and Oxford in the UK. And I'm a little bit intrigued because I think, if I'm right, the Scottish part was about roots and heritage, but the Oxford part, did you study at Oxford?
I did. So in 2020, I studied for an MBA at Oxford, and because of the time period of going there in 2020, it was during COVID, of course, and so we had some challenges with being in person 100% of the time. And as part of that, the school basically gifted all the students a free 1 week course, an executive course to take after 5 years of graduation. So I recently went back for a week and studied in negotiations. And it was so wonderful to be back and in person and studying in that capacity.
And with a little bit more liberation this time than the last time you were there. So that's good. How did you find not being able to engage so much at that time in 2020 with COVID?
I still had a really incredible experience at Oxford. I feel like it brought a really unique type of person. Someone, we went in September of 2020. We could have deferred. So we very much knew what we were getting ourselves into. And I think it brought a person who was excited for a challenge and willing to kind of deal with a lot of uncertainty at that time. And so with that, I feel too like the type of person that it brought, but then it also allowed you to go very deep with the people that you connected with immediately.
Yeah.
The COVID bubbles, as we know. And so it developed really, really strong, incredible connections and friendships during my time there that have sustained since. And I feel really grateful for the experience.
That's wonderful, isn't it? Because I've come across this perspective from quite a few people with COVID that it become a blessing for a lot of people because it made us sort of communicate and bring us together again in a world where we seemed to be a lot more separate. So it's interesting how you can look at something in a negative way, and obviously there's always positives in it if you look for them. So it's interesting that you put it like that. I met you, I think we mentioned earlier, in 2023 in Miami. And I know that then you were going backwards and forwards between Canada and Miami, with a little bit of Costa Rica put in there for effect on your journey. So you like to travel and you like to get to different places. I think I'm right in saying that you're now in Toronto, in Canada. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And as you,
I moved back to Toronto about a year ago, and
Yeah.
exactly to your point, I've always been a traveler. After Oxford, I actually took about 3.5 years, and I was a digital nomad. So I traveled, I lived, different places and Airbnbs, and would book anywhere from like a week or 2 weeks up to 3 months in certain locations. And part of that stint was about a 1.5 years in Miami, which is when we met.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So would you say that because of COVID, quite often people take a break after studies because it's quite intense. Did you feel inspired at that time to sort of, and I don't know how you were before the MBA, but I should imagine you were quite adventurous and like to discover yourself. But it seems to me that after that period, like you've just said, you went on this journey of like 3 years of discovering yourself. And I think also at that time is when I think I was aware that you started to do retreats in Costa Rica and breath work and things.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk a bit
Mm-hmm.
more about that?
Yeah, I would say kind of my self-discovery journey probably started in my like mid to late 20s, so before Oxford. I
Okay.
started being kind of like interested in meditation and this other kind of like inner world work, and was just very curious. And that process and that kind of focus on self-development is actually what led me to pursue an MBA. Like I felt a little bit dissatisfied with the life I was building and living at the time. I was living in Toronto, had a pretty solid career, and it's kind of like, is this it? Like, is this, is
Yeah.
this my life? And I'm doing everything right. And why am I feeling just slightly, unfulfilled? And there has to be more. And so my solution, coming from a very, driven family, I would say, performance oriented, was to pursue an MBA and kind of have this year abroad in a way that would give me time to think. My goal was to always do something entrepreneurial on the other side of
Yeah.
the MBA.
Yeah.
I had played around with a few different like side hustles during my career, living in Toronto, and so yeah, the MBA and the decision to leave Canada, I would say, was a huge catalyst for the unfolding of the next few years. Mm-hmm.
Would you say, because I get drawn to different places, but I'm very drawn to the time when you felt like you weren't satisfied, like it was all there for you. You'd worked hard to get where you were. You're a very driven person. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this with other people that are driven too, but it's like a calling. Would you say it was like a knowing that there's more to life? You said then that there's more to life. How did that unfold for you, and how did it feel for you?
Yeah, it felt like this kind of inner dialogue or something kind of like niggling at me, where it was, on paper, everything should have been amazing. Like I was living kind of not kind of, I was living a beautiful life. I had everything, friendships, a great career, great money, and it was just, there was something inside of me that was like, there has to be more. And I love this concept of kind of like living from the inside out versus the outside in. And when I reflect on that time period, I had really built my life from the lens of like the outside in, like what
Yeah.
on paper is going to make me look a certain way, or how do I do things to be validated, and all very blissfully unaware that I was doing that. Like I think we live in a society that unfortunately values that over what feels right internally, and how we operate from that locus of control, or how we orient toward life. um, and so in hindsight it was like, well, my the inside out was just calling for more attention and calling to be looked at.
I
Mm-hmm.
love the way you put that inside out, which is very much what I'm about to, and as you know, and it's almost, well, it is a complete reversal of how we're taught to live in this world, isn't it? From very early on, it's all about influence from the outside and expectations. It's almost like it pulls us further and further away from our true selves, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me as well, I had this internal pull and I had to follow it, and you've done the same thing. From where you are now, are you? How can I write this in the right way? Um, are you glad or grateful that you did?
So grateful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you had told me how hard it was going to be, I would never have done it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can actually totally empathise with that. Someone actually did tell me good luck at the beginning, 11 years ago, and I had no idea. And still, I believe it's a continuation. It just unfolds, doesn't it? But I
Yeah,
think if we really knew what was ahead, we'd probably run for the hills. But
totally. And
yeah,
I think, maybe cliche to say, but it's like the person that you become through that journey is what makes it worth it. And
of
I
course,
always feel that. Like
yeah.
the person I am today is, wildly different from 5 years ago. And the way that I look at life and approach life and feel connected to life is such a gift now. Hmm.
Because it's growth, isn't it? It's personally, I think it's a remembrance of who we are, and it's
Yeah.
acceptance. 'Cause, like, there's a lot of buzzwords around at the minute, and people talk about. I mean, the inner child work we know, we do the inner child work, and we work on ourselves, and we look at the things we've experienced in life that have affected us in a certain way. As we know, there's no growth without pain, and life is about growth, isn't it? So this is very interesting to see that perspective of inside out. Um, but the fact that you say it's worth it is a great thing to
Mm-hmm.
have that understanding. And I think there's so many different perspectives, even from one aspect, that we can gain on this journey because we've gone through the journey and experienced it. And I think it makes us stronger. The pain that we go through and the experiences makes us. Um, I don't even like to use the word better version of ourselves, more ourselves. I think we find ourselves more as we go along, a more
Mm-hmm.
true essence. Um, Around this point, actually, obviously, I was looking on Instagram, and again, I know a little bit about you, but you talk quite a lot about depression and anxiety that you've experienced in your life. Do you mind talking about that? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. I struggled through my mid 20s as well. And I think it ties back to this like living life again from the outside in versus the inside out. It was like my inner world was calling for me. And instead of tending to her, I was, continuing to build a life that like was really serving kind of, a version for other people and for like the externalities. And
Yeah,
so I yeah, I struggled in my mid 20s, and then it got worse and worse over the years, and especially I entered into a really challenging relationship, and that exacerbated what I was going through, and I went through some periods of really really deep clinical depression, and was experiencing suicidal ideation as well, and yeah, experiencing that depth of suffering, I think gave me a whole new perspective on you know what that can feel and look like for people, and it gives me a lot of compassion for other people that might be suffering. And conversely, we live in a dualistic world, and I feel that I've also experienced the opposite. Like I've experienced these blissful states of like of life, and so I'm grateful for that too. It's like we can't experience one without the other, and that was something I held on to as I was going through kind of like the darkness. It's
yeah.
like there has to be the opposite of this in the future, and that's been really incredible to witness.
It's the contrast, isn't it? With all emotions and experiences, like you mentioned, duality, which I love that, and that. Can I ask you a question around the duality actually? Because it's something that I'm also starting to understand a different way. Do you feel like it's understanding duality and then being able to go beyond duality and see duality from an outside perspective?
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's I've come and had moments almost where I can hold this like neutral space where I can see both sides and almost be you know unaffected by the highs and the lows in a sense. Like you kind of like hold this more peaceful viewpoint, which is really
Yeah.
incredible. Hmm.
What do you think helped you to do that, to be able to find that neutral place? Because I know you've done breath work, I know you've done a lot of work on yourself with yoga and all different modalities. But what would you think was the most beneficial to you on your journey?
Yeah. Yeah. So many modalities, right? There's so much out there.
Yeah,
And that's also what inspired like the retreat app and all the work I'm doing is space to create awareness and accessibility on all these modalities. Cause I think for me personally, there wasn't necessarily one modality that really was like, this is it. This is going to fix everything. It was kind of understanding myself in all of these different lenses and ways in order to kind of get to the root of what was going on. And I think
yeah,
you know there's of course like no silver bullet, and I almost like view all of these modalities as kind of like attuning to a different part of us.
yeah,
But that said, I would probably say IFS, so internal family systems, does a really beautiful way of like understanding our inner landscape and our inner world, and that's a modality or a way of thinking about my myself that I continuously come back to as a way to like reorient and understand how I'm moving through the world.
could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I'll be very intrigued to understand what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, so it kind of understands our psyche or our inner world in terms of parts, and we have different parts of ourselves that kind of come out or come online depending on different seasons of life that we might be moving through or different challenges. And so Um, we can have an anxious part, and for example, that anxious part is typically trying to tell us something, like it is worried, or there's a reason why it's coming out to protect another part of us, or to avoid a situation in the past happening again.
Yeah.
And so through the process of getting curious and compassionate to that part of us, we can actually like reintegrate that back and kind of come back into more wholeness within ourselves.
I love that. So it's actually having an understanding that we are multiple aspects as a part of a whole,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to, rather than being governed or subconsciously run on some program and not being in control of that, we can look at the aspects, accept it, and then choose which ones we want to use to deal with the situation that we're in. Is that right? My understanding?
Yeah, exactly. And through time, it's like we're operating from all of these different aspects of self. And it's not to say that one is right or wrong, but there's typically kind of this more like neutral, full self place that we can operate from. And so
Yeah,
by spending time and understanding these different parts that kind of come out, we can then better help to identify when we're actually living from that place,
yeah,
um, when it's not kind of like the ideal place we want to live from. And through practice and through time, come back into like more of that self with capital S energy.
yeah. And what do you think helps you with that?
Mm. Yeah, I think there is a certain level of acceptance of like this reality and certain choices maybe that we've had to make. I think in the case of my journey, I felt we could talk about like the concept of free will and soul
Yeah,
contracts and all these things, but um, I've had to have acceptance for the suffering that I experienced. I intuitively feel that there were certain things in my life that were meant to come in and kind of cause like disruption.
yeah,
And that was like, if you want to call it a soul contract, it was definitely something. It was like unavoidable to that degree. Like I was meant to experience those things to experience growth and learn. I do think on the concept of free will, I ended up making many more choices that ultimately weren't necessarily like meant to happen, but I kind of continued to suffer unnecessarily because I couldn't make the choice, or I couldn't kind of get myself out of the situation at the time. So I've had to have acceptance for, I guess, both sides. Yeah, like recognizing I, kind of like continued to make choices that weren't serving me. Mm-hmm.
but then yeah, I've done exactly the same, so I get it. It's like cycles that play out, isn't it? And this is something I'm quite big on at the minute with generational cycles. And sometimes it's hard to even with, I think it was, first of all, it's like discovering or understanding that it is a cycle and recognizing it for what it is. And it's like, how do I break this? And then it's like you've got to find a way to push through these cycles. And I think that sometimes could be, it's just a double-edged sword, because it can be frustrating because you're in it and you think you know how to get out of it, but it just comes down to that moment when it just clicks and something shifts,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Something shifts and you have a new level of realization, or you're viewing it from like a different level of consciousness, and you're like, how did I not see this before? And okay, this is the
Yeah.
decision I have to make, and why did it take this long? And all
Yeah.
the things. Yeah.
But do you find, because I'm intrigued about that, when you find that place, or when you get the answers, do you find that in a stillness or a place of being in the zero point, like you've mentioned? Where do you find your answers, Ashley? That's what I'd like to ask you.
Yeah, it depends. I would say I actually find answers in movement,
Yeah.
but with a still mind, so in silence and in quiet. But kind of like depends on my energetic state. If I'm feeling still in my body, and things are kind of relaxed, I feel like I can find answers in like deep meditation. And also, if I'm feeling a lot of like stagnancy in my body, then I know I have to move and kind of like get some stagnant energy out, and just going for like a brisk walk or a hike. And as I'm walking and kind of processing and allowing those energies to float up and out, I find yeah, I'm met, and the answers kind of land in my body.
I love that. It's similar for me, actually. When I go for walks, that's when I tend to get things come in, and I think it's that, like you've mentioned, it's the movement, and not being in the conscious mind. You know, it's just allowing the conscious mind to relax and all to relax and then flow, can't it?
Driving, I was just going to say, driving, interestingly as well, like long road trips, or my family has a cottage a few hours north of Toronto, and I'm often driving back and forth. And I find driving, like I'm processing so much. And this actually ties to one of the modalities that we have in retreat called EMDR. And
Yeah,
it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And
yeah,
so person who founded it basically discovered this kind of on a walk. She was like realizing how much she was processing, and it's like the movement of our eyes actually allows like our subconscious and our psyche to like process stored energy and things that are being kind of like stuck within us. And so I find that I tie it back to that like scientific approach with walking, and then also driving as you're kind of like scanning the road back and forth. And I find yeah, it's interesting.
I love that. As you talk, there's so many questions I could just go on to because it's just inspiring, and I love these conversations. I want to touch upon the science side because, again, something I know you're interested in, something I'm very interested in too. But your understanding, you mentioned something earlier on about um, selecting or logging on, and putting it in that way, you know, which is the way that I look at things energetically. It's almost like very crudely, like a program or a system that we can access. How do you feel about that, and how do you feel about science versus spirituality and what's going on with that right now?
Mhm. I mean, I feel that science is quickly catching up to like prove a lot of the spiritual encounters that many people are having,
Yeah,
and I think we need, for me personally, and I think as a collective society, in terms of gaining more like group acceptance in terms of that all of this is real. I think we need to have our left brains be satisfied with
yeah,
the scientific rigor and approach, and then also create space for the right brain, like the experiencing, the more feminine, the flow, and to have some of those like opening and awakening experiences for then you know to allow this information and this way of viewing the world to be more accessible to people. And so I think both are incredibly important. And I love the science behind spirituality and quantum physics and energetic fields. And it's um, to me it's like having both the experiential part and then also like the tangible part where I can intellectualize and understand is has been a big part of allowing this all to feel like very synthesized in me.
yeah. So it's like an amalgamation of both sides. Yeah, yeah, I love that. That's a great way of looking at it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you know, as a medium, you can get very caught up in this proof of survival, and you know, it's all healing at the end of the day, isn't it? These modalities, but it's becoming more about energy now, I think, and there's a lot more people collectively conscious of what's going on in the world now. And again, because I've looked at your Instagram and because of my own perspective, I think a lot more people are not looking to people so much as a guru. They want to go and discover these things for themselves because they know they can, which is wonderful because it's so much more empowering, isn't it? And more
Yeah.
aligned with who they are rather than trying to repeat somebody else's understanding or perspective of things.
Yeah, and I often think it's, everyone's finding their unique kind of like way in the world and their unique way of understanding their experience of life and what we know about consciousness. Like it's unique to each person. And so I think that's what's beautiful is like as the collective wakes up and starts to explore this more and more, we then get to all like shape collectively what we want to see in the world. And I think that, again, was a huge impetus behind the Retreat app is bringing all of these modalities from different practitioners in one place so that people can explore, have accessibility, try things out and on, and learn what the right modality is for them. Um, it could be, as I was going through the journey, it was time consuming, it was costly, it was challenging to understand who can I trust, what is like a vetted practitioner. It's a bit of a black box. And so um, and I also found in my journey becoming a practitioner and kind of like learning from the lens of, oh, I can embody this and I can make change in my own life by understanding this. You have way more agency over your
Yeah,
experience.
Yeah.
exactly as you said, versus being like, this person has all the answers. I'm just going to do what they do. And I don't think we need to have more people in the world that, you know, just want to, we need more leaders and we need more people who want to take that agency. Hmm.
I 100% agree, and it's energetic, isn't it? I mean, so many more people these days, from my own experience, are coming on online, or the sensitivity is increasing with the new generations as they come through, and less karma and stuff. And it's about being, they can feel authenticity, and the way I look at it is, it's an energetic. If you can't energetically support what you're talking about, people will see that and feel it. So
Yeah.
you say, you mentioned it as being agency, same thing. It's like we have to live it to be able to talk about it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it just doesn't feel right, and people can sense that, can't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, as you're talking, I'm like, wow, that's definitely a shift over the last few years as the collective kind of wakes up more and more. And I think sometimes we lose the perspective on kind of how far we've come, but I think that is a major shift that's happening. And, I think we're starting to see that just with like global events and politics and people kind of being much more discerning about, um, who's in power and what this actually means. So,
Well, I think people can just see it. We all have that claircognizance. We all have that knowing, and I think that's just becoming more and more empowered. The universe is speeding up more. Things are getting quicker. This is, people talk about this big shift, Ashley, don't they? And so many more people are coming online that are doing the work on themselves, but also are here to help others in that journey. And call it what you like, terminology. There's so much out there in terminology, but ultimately it's about self, isn't it? I
yeah.
think myself, I got fixated on wanting to help people, falling into the trap of taking emotions on and doing it outside. But actually, you don't do it that way. It's the reversal, isn't it? You do the work on yourself. You become like a leader, like you've mentioned, or you inspire through your own actions. It's a softer way of helping people, because then it allows them to choose to access what you've done or not, rather than forcing it upon people and then becoming energetically intermingled and taking stuff on each way, you know?
Yeah.
So, um, I want to go on to Costa Rica. I'm just looking at my list. I'm sorry if I look off to the side, but I need a list. I know you've spent a lot of time in Costa Rica, and I'd like you to talk about that because it seems like a really significant part on your journey.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely has been. I started, I feel like I've been down to Costa Rica about 7 or 8 times over the last like 4 or 5 years, and usually for extended periods. And I just find the land there incredibly healing. And I've had some really magical experiences while being there and truly feeling just support, I would say, from the energies that exist there. And yeah, it's been so beneficial for my healing. I've made an incredible community while in Costa Rica. I've led retreats down there, have been on retreats, and yeah, it's a place I keep coming back to, and a place that I feel will continue to play a significant role in my life in the future.
Do you think it's a geographic? Like you mentioned, it's obviously the place itself, and geographically, have you found other places like this? Because I feel like for you, it's about being in nature, it's reconnecting with Mother Earth, it's taking time out of the rat race. It's a combination. But have you found similar places on your travels, or
Yeah, I definitely feel for me, I actually lately even more have had challenges like being in cities. Like I feel the energy can feel quite frenetic, and I really enjoy being in nature. I mentioned the cottage, which I spend a lot of time at over the summer, and that's a really special place for me too. Being by forests, being by lakes, and you just have such a deeper connection to why we're really here. And I think nature is, such a metaphor and a mirror for that. And just getting out and kind of really looking and listening and feeling like, you're connected something to something greater than yourself has been, a daily practice that has really allowed me to see things in a new light.
do you think it gives you because it's a perspective, isn't it? Like perspective can be such a powerful word for me, and it puts things into perspective and order. I think, like you say, we can learn so much from nature. Um, Really, I think everything if we listen. when you connect into that energy, it's there, isn't it? It's all there for us to find. We just have to give ourselves the permission and the time to look for it.
Hmm. Yeah, and setting the intention to like, I really want to learn and understand and um, see myself reflected in nature. And I love, like, you know, just last week I saw a fox, I saw a great heron, I saw an owl, and I'm amidst like hummingbirds and dragonflies, and it's like wow, like well, I'm always tuning in, like okay, well, does this have is this a message? And I think those little kind of connections to like the sacred that you just don't get in a city. In certain ways you can, but to me it's just so much more like bountiful and full than life where there's just like more chaos and more things going on.
I get it totally. Especially being in Miami, that was an experience to be there. Obviously, it's a very fast-paced city.
Mm-hmm.
Would you find, Ashley, or have you found that as you've worked more on yourself and the journey that you're on, that your sensitivity has shifted and you've become more sensitive, or you've just adjusted into that sensitivity? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've always been very sensitive. I would say it's almost like the sensitivity has shifted into like a different sense perception.
Yeah.
Um, and it's I won't lie, it's challenging, right? It's like challenging to have the sensitivity and to like navigate through the world with that. And I'm constantly, as that changes, I'm constantly learning like what works well for me, what doesn't, how I need to like best support myself. And I'm actually considering kind of planning, figuring it out, but leaving Toronto because everything I just shared about city life and just the way I
Yeah.
feel being in nature is so different, and it allows me to do my work so much more, effectively and just feel more connected. And so, yeah, that it's definitely shifting the way that I want to live life, and kind of, in some ways it's, challenging to have these, life transitions and shifts. But I think ultimately I'm just coming back to like how we were always meant to live, right? Which is like
Yeah.
deeply,
Really.
deeply connected to nature.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it? If you've obviously travelled, I travel. One of the things that fascinates me, and I was at an airport recently. Everybody's on their phone. It's like 90% of people are glued to a phone, and it's like it's just pulling us further and further away, which is so ironic because it's a communication device. So it's having the opposite effect of what it should be. I feel it should be there for, but I do feel like there are people using that in a way that's beneficial to people with
Mhm.
apps like yourself, the retreat app, with tools that people can access quickly. Back in the day, you'd have to walk to somebody's and talk to, and it would take a lot longer. And although these devices have taken us away from ourselves, I think people are now, like yourselves, realizing, hang on a minute, we can actually use this to benefit everybody or a lot of people. And actually, it can become a positive rather than a negative.
I completely agree. I feel like we can leverage and use technology as a force for good. And, we have to be really mindful and thoughtful about how we design and build systems and solutions for people. But I think technology is not going anywhere. Like we just need to find new ways to orient toward it, to allow it,
Yeah,
and become really hyper aware of the drawbacks and some of the products that are built for addiction, and do what we need to do to limit ourselves and not shame ourselves for, there are days certainly where my screen time is, and doing the digital work that I do, it's a constant dance and um, journey, I would say.
so let's talk a little bit more about that. What is it you're doing right now?
Mhm. Yeah, so the majority of my time right now is spent building and scaling the retreat app. So over the years, we've really identified our user and our girl, as we like to say internally, our retreat girl,
Yeah,
who I really built this tool for myself when in hindsight, what I was going through, and we've really identified that she's someone going through big life transitions and identity shifts and really wants these tools and a deeper like way of orienting to life and understanding herself. And so I feel just I love working on this. Like it just really excites me. And I'm so excited for kind of like the scale of, what we're building. And we're in a phase right now of redesigning the brand, redesigning the app, redesigning all the content based on everything we've learned over the last few years, about who she is and what she's looking for. And so excited later this year to do a relaunch and, see what the world thinks.
Yeah. But you know what, Ashley, I love what you've done, I'll be honest, because, and I'm being completely honest with you, because you've turned your pain and your growth and your, what some people would see as a negative experience into a positive. You've channeled it, you've alchemized it into something that can help, not only help you, but helps other people and could help a lot of people potentially as it grows, which it is, which is wonderful. And also, even in the making of it, it was a challenge. So you came from a challenge to do something to help yourself, and then, oh, I can help other people with this. But then you've got into another challenge to try and design it and create it. So it's like you're on this journey of just keep pushing boundaries and keep bringing it in. But I can feel your passion and I can feel your intent behind it. It's genuine, which is wonderful, because
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of things out there that aren't necessarily the same.
Thank
You
you
know?
for saying that and for seeing it. It certainly does feel like this alchemization, as you mentioned. And
Yeah.
this journey of entrepreneurship and putting something out into the world has been the greatest journey of self development. And it's like been so confronting. And,
Yeah.
we're at, a new kind of like level and layer in the business, but it doesn't mean there's not challenge. And there's still, like, every time there's a challenge, it's like I think about what I need as an individual to like move through this, and then that
Yeah.
helps to inform what we're creating. And so it's all you know it's almost like inception-y, if you will, in a way. It's like building this product but alchemizing myself, but along the journey it's creating more and more kind of juice and momentum, and energy to create this like new world. So it's really I'm, it's like interesting to think about it from this kind of like meta perspective, because it's, um, I don't know, I find it so kind of wild that I'm doing this and working on it, and I'm still kind of like don't understand how this all came to be in some ways.
Yeah. Because you
Hmm.
made it happen. That's how. But it's like you've turned Ashley into an app, so people can access you online, and that's literally what it feels like. You talked about the journey of finding practitioners in that, and when you were talking about it, I could feel the shift of like having to negotiate those waves, and maybe it opened up a lot more, and you learned a lot from it about what is out there. What's your perspective on that at the minute, Ashley?
Hmm. Yeah, I think each person who's offering something, right, they're moving through their own perspective of life,
Yeah,
and their own challenges. And I think, there's certain practitioners and certain ways of doing things for different people.
yeah,
Um, and I think for the girl that we're building for, I think what excites me is that we can like pull in the people that we really feel are like the most connected to this archetype or this person moving through the world, and create this space where it's like so easy, and it's like, wow, I just step in and this is exactly what I needed. And I can learn and be guided, but you don't have to go through like the years and years of struggle that I went through of like, who is the right person for me and what does this mean? And it's like, you still have to go through the journey yourself, but that like arduous process is eliminated, and like it's a shortcut to, okay, like now I just get to focus on the healing, and I can
mm,
make this happen like very accessibly, like from a financial standpoint. And I don't have to like struggle to be like, am I on the right path? It's like it's all here. You still have to do the work and make it happen in your own life, but shortcutting, I think, is how I think about it.
yeah. It's like it's instant access, isn't it? Where, like you say, I know you've been fair. Similar for me. It's trying to streamline it in a way, because you still have to do the work. You can't streamline the work. That's just the way it is. We know that, and it's a continuation forever. Otherwise, what's the point if it stops? But
Yeah.
I think to make it more gentle and more softer for people and more accessible, and I love the fact you touched upon the financial side of it, because not everybody. I know you've probably spent thousands of dollars on your, and I've spent a lot on mine. if we could put that somewhere, which is what you're obviously quite passionate about doing, in a way where it is accessible to everybody, so you haven't got to worry about those parts. You can just literally focus on the healing, and that's a really good thing.
And it should be, right? It's,
Yeah,
this this work, everyone should be able to feel liberation and freedom and
yeah,
like alchemize their inner world. And I think we've we've lost as a society kind of like the connection to that being a part of our culture. And I think that's what, I'm wanting to do, is like allow, basically democratize access to this work in this world and make it a part of like the fabric of our life.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I love that. And again, you can tell it's genuine, so it's wonderful. Um, I often say to people when I'm working with them and I'm working, I tell them to go back and look at their life. As you go back and look at your life, can you see how it unfolded and the pieces that were there that you went through that pulled it all together to create what you've done now and your own inner work and healing?
Completely. It's like
Yeah,
so, kind of makes me like laugh looking back, right? It's,
yeah,
even some of the challenges. Like, I grew up, I mentioned, in this very entrepreneurial household, and I was kind of like forced to go down the business route. Like, I was very creative and enjoyed like acting and singing, and very much like wanted to pursue that to a degree, but was like, didn't really have an option other than to pursue business. And I just look at my career and everything I was doing at that point in time around, like, it was in technology and conversion rate optimization and analytics, and basically all the pieces were there for me, like the
yeah.
business, the tech, the app experience, to then take like this newfound kind of experiential knowledge or a deeper connection to self and put all the pieces together. And it's like the perfect, it's so perfect, honestly. And
It's
so I look
hindsight.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But it's almost like your creativity was suppressed for a little while to be able to do the analytical side and the business side to give you the tools that you needed to get to where you were meant to be going. And maybe that even contributed to a little bit to the depression, and that as well in itself all was a catalyst for what you were doing. So it's just wonderful how it, when you
Hmm.
look at it, as I'm talking to you now, you can see how much you've gone and understood and learned and experienced, and how it was all there from the start. And do you
Hmm.
feel like that's similar for a lot of people?
Hmm. I really believe so. I was just chatting with a friend who, is kind of at this transition time and is wondering, what's next. Like, she's not satisfied in her career. And I was, kind of trying to illuminate to her. I'm like, wow, you have such interesting experience, like in these different fields. And how do you kind of like pull all of those things together, to then understand, like, you've kind of created a blueprint, and like, where can you, how can you take all these things and alchemize them together to then take your steps forward? And I think, for, maybe not everyone, but I think that there is, if you can have that perspective of like looking back and kind of like seeing the threads and seeing some of the patterns, and having like the gumption and the self-belief that like I can do something different or bring all these pieces together, I think that there's such opportunity there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you're born with that, with those attributes to be a leader, to be that, to help, to want to help. It's humanity, isn't it? It's not about trying to heal other people. We know that, but it's about bringing, what can I bring into this world? How can I contribute to humanity
Mm.
with the experiences that I've had, but also having this drive, or this, like, this soul, this passion that's calling out to follow this path in some way. And it's just beautiful how it, for me to see it all come together for you, even though I've only known you a short time, I've just seen so much growth in that short time that I have known you, and where you are now, and what you're trying, what you, not what you're trying, what you have established, and are continuing to grow and improve.
Mm.
And it's great to bring these things into the world.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a really, as I said, challenging journey, if you had told
Yeah,
me. And I think it's required, and a lot of time like sitting in the darkness and sitting with the challenge and allowing that to transform me and change me. And then, and almost seeing like, wow, I can't even fathom how this is all going to work out. Like, it really feels like it's not going to.
oh, yeah,
But continuing to trust and like follow that little seed that's inside of you. And I really resonate with like the bamboo shoot mentality. It's like you're it's I forget the exact term, but I think it's like they grow like an exponential amount in a certain amount of time. But
Yeah.
they're just like planting the roots and growing the roots. And intuitively, I knew that's what was happening, even on the days when I really couldn't see it. And I'm experiencing that now. It's like kind of all of a sudden, it's not to say everything's like figured out and worked out, but I'm experiencing myself in such a different way. Like the growth kind of is happening all at once, and from like more the external point of view, and that's really incredible to feel. It's like, okay, you're kind of like cultivating yourself in this earth for so long,
Yeah.
and then you're creating the right conditions for yourself to flourish and to grow. And I really feel that way with the work I'm doing in the world. Like I said this to someone yesterday. I just want to create, and what I'm building, I'm creating a world that I want to live in,
Yeah.
and that I think most people want to live in, a world that allows us to flourish and to live meaningful, connected lives where we're happy and joyful. And for whatever reason, for some reason, it doesn't make sense to me. We live in a world where that's not the case. I just don't know why.
Well, we could get into that, couldn't we? That'd be a long conversation. But
um,
yeah,
but yeah, all of the work I'm doing really centers and ladders up into that belief system and that vision.
I love the fact that you're owning it and you're saying the world that I would want to live in. Because I think we were born into this world, and a lot of us are told that you can't be selfish, which self-focused, whatever you want to call it. But actually, that's where we need to be, because if we're the best version of ourselves, or we allow our best, not the best, that's allow ourselves to be and be ourselves, that's always going to be the best version. So if we all do that, it can be a marvelous change across the whole planet. So the
Mhm.
fact that you can sit there and own that just shows that you've done the work and say that comfortably. It's great to
Mhm.
see.
Mm.
Um, I what's next for
Mhm.
Ashley? That's one of the questions I have for you.
Well, I'm considering a move down to Los Angeles, actually, which
Okay.
of course is a city, but I'm exploring like Topanga area, so very much in nature, but kind of close to city when I need to be for work.
Yeah.
And that's very much where kind of our initial audience is, and where we're planning the relaunch and growing retreat. But that said, I'm working on a number of different projects as well, and so it can kind of like take me all over. I really, I have like an inkling maybe of different places I want to be, but I'm in this real exploratory phase of my life where I'm open and excited about kind of like where life is going to take me, and just feel kind of like I'm in the flow with that.
Yeah.
I recently got a dog as well, and so he'll travel with me, but that's like a new point of consideration, which has like been really good actually to ground me a little bit and force me to be in more routine and open my heart in a beautiful way. So yeah, that's kind of like a short snippet of where I'm at. And I don't know, life could look incredibly different in 6 months, and it probably will. Yeah,
You're just trying to live in the flow state. That's what it sounds like to me, which
totally.
we know is where we need to be.
Hmm.
I know that's going to be a very lucky dog, very pampered and looked after. I can feel it in the energy. Um, I know we need to sort of bring this to a closure now, and thank you very much for coming on and talking about things. Um, One question I have got for you is, what would you say to your younger self now?
Mm, just trust yourself. Trust the inner feelings that you have and the way that you perceive the world. There's real like beauty in that. And this journey for me has been such a journey of self trust. And I think I would want more women to feel that way too, to trust themselves. I mean,
Yeah,
not just women, all people, but that that trust has been the if I had more of that back then, I think it would have been a slightly easier journey.
but if you had, you wouldn't be who you are and where you are. So,
True.
but I can feel it as you're saying it, and you've mentioned it a few times. And again, it's the same for me. In them dark moments, it's been that trust that's got you through it, and then to trust in something you can't see in fruition or physical yet, in the physicality, but you know it's there. it takes an incredible amount of courage and just, I mean, I don't know if I use the word faith, but
Yeah.
it's that thing that gets us through, isn't it? And it gets us to where you are now. Look at what you've achieved already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Faith.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Ashley.
No, just saying faith. I completely agree and resonate with that. And whatever that looks like for each individual, right? It's so unique.
Yeah, yeah,
So, well, yeah, thank you so much for having this conversation. I feel like we entered a bit of a flow state, and I
yeah.
just, yeah, so enjoyed like connecting back with you and sharing, and it's been such a pleasure.
Me too. And I'm very grateful for you coming on the show. And I'm very much looking forward to where it goes next. One thing I just want to quickly ask you at the end, because it comes to my mind, is are there any plans for in-person retreats or things like that you have got in the mix? Or
Yes, yeah, that's
yeah,
a huge component of what we have planned in
good.
terms of building, IRL community. So both events in major cities across North
Yeah,
America and likely Europe in the future, and then also longer experiences of retreats as well, where we're bringing in all these different modalities. And to me, it's like having the blend of the in-person is it's so important to have that, and then the digital experiences kind of maintenance and integration and staying connected amidst the digital world that we live in. But having both is I think exactly what the world needs right now.
well, you mentioned duality before, and I could feel it in the energy as you were talking about it. So that's why I wanted to ask you. So
Mm,
I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that unfolds. I know it will be a success because you will make it a success. Um, Thank you very much for coming on, Ashley, and I very much look forward to seeing what goes on in the future for you.
thanks, Mark. So wonderful to chat, and I so appreciate it.
As do I. You take care.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.